Yesterday, Georgia Tech got a really big win, and we're about to talk about a whole lot of stuff that happened in week one, as I'm calling it. So let's get started now. I'm going to recap briefly our stance on Georgia Tech. We've called them the biggest sleeping giant program in America, and I want to stress long before anyone outside of that athletic complex did in Atlanta. Long before. So I never viewed it as an if. I only viewed it as a when. To be clear, I'm not telling you it's happened yet, but I have had zero doubt. I remember being down in Columbus. We're about to show you video in just a second from the aforementioned Columbus, Georgia late kick independent days. And I remember when Jeff Collins was hired, he had yet to coach a game. He had yet to organize so much as a practice there. But everything he said perfectly aligned with what I had been screaming Georgia Tech football should embrace as its brand forever. And that's quite simply Atlanta. Georgia Tech didn't matter in its own city. You had the intersection of the SEC and the ACC footprint. You have a city called the capital of college football. You got the Hall of Fame there. Like, everyone comes there to recruit. And there's a Power 5 program in the middle of downtown Atlanta, and they were totally irrelevant. So Jeff Collins, this guy comes in and slaps 404 all over the place, which is the area code of the place where they're at, being Atlanta, Georgia. And they brand themselves as Atlanta. And you look around and you say, well, any idiot could have done that. Okay. But they didn't, and that's the point. So then the second part was the energy was palpable. All the high school coaches in the state of Georgia started talking about Georgia Tech. This was happening behind the scenes. You would not have picked up on this unless you were really plugged into the high school scene in Georgia. So we were doing late kick in Columbus at the time. I was working down at WLTZ NBC 38 in Columbus, Georgia. I was anchoring the news in exchange for being able to use their studio to do this show that ended up being picked up by 24/7, and here I am. But at the time, we were independent, so we were still doing the shows on Sunday night, and I didn't have any Georgia Tech fans watching the show, so I had no incentive to do this. But yet, Colin, get that video ready. I was on there, and I was fielding some hate, some Yellow Jacket hate from my Georgia fans. And I said, you know what? I don't think you guys really understand what could be about to happen here. I don't think anyone understands the immense potential of this program at Georgia Tech. So keep in mind what you saw yesterday. Keep in mind all the positivity on Twitter and social media afterwards, and everyone wanting to claim, I called it. This was from May of 2019. Roll it, Colin.
There's a very specific brand and blueprint that Georgia Tech's going to have to use, but they can use it. And they can absolutely find, you don't have to have 100. They can absolutely find 25 per year that are competitive enough, that also can get it done in the classroom and want to come to Georgia Tech because it's been rebranded as a place that's a destination rather than some backup option for a kid who, also happens to be smart. That's not what Georgia Tech football is going to be in the future. Now, we're going to bookmark this segment because it's not going to happen this year, but I'm bookmarking this segment. And down the road, when a lot of other people are trying to jump on this bandwagon, we're going to be there, and maybe we'll reach our hand out for you to pull you on board. Maybe we won't. Georgia Tech football, they will be coming. And it will be a brand that's a lot more attractive 2 or 3 years from now than it has been over the last 2, 3, or even 7 years.
Was that shirt red, by the way, Colin? I think it was. Anyway, outside of the shirt color, yeah, that's what we were talking about the moment Jeff Collins walked in the door. So for all the I called it crowd, you may have, but you need to get in line behind us. So having said that, Georgia Tech hasn't arrived. I am certainly not sitting here beating a drum saying, let's put this team in our college football playoff projections. Nothing happened yesterday that reverses the idea that they still have a lot of work to do. They know that. I mean, I talked to some of their coaches after the game last night. They know that. They understand that. But what did yesterday prove? Well, I'll tell you one thing it proved. And if you missed it, they beat Florida State 16-13. More on the game in just a second. But I'll tell you what it does prove. It proves that the rooting system has not only started to take place, you may be seeing, we had a crabapple tree across the street when I was growing up, and early spring, you start to see the first fruit on that crabapple tree. I don't advise you eat them, but if you did, you'd bite into it, and oh man, it'd be really tangy because it'd be really sour, not quite ripe, but there was fruit, which was a sign spring was coming. This right here, this win against Florida State yesterday, think about the circumstances in the win, by the way. I mean, imagine being this coaching staff and getting on that plane last night and flying home knowing as you watch Tallahassee, Florida shrink beneath you. Wait a second. We had horrible turnovers in the first half. We missed a couple of field goals and an extra point. Like, we had so much stuff go wrong. We start a true freshman quarterback on the road, and we're shut out in the first half, and we still won? Did that just happen? So you got all the mistakes in the world. You got every reason in the world to lose, but you still win, really just because of fight. And that's what it was. So you look at that, and you got so much stuff you got to clean up. But there's just this little sliver of fruit that you see on the tree. That's the takeaway from yesterday. Not that they've arrived, but the takeaway is there are a lot of really good things to come for this program. And let me tell you something. If you didn't watch Jeff Sims yesterday, he made some terrible decisions. He made some great plays. Jeff Sims being the quarterback there. If you watch the broadcast or if you're a diehard recruiting fan, you know the story. If you don't, let me take about 15 seconds and catch you up. Jeff Sims, quarterback, was committed to Florida State. Mike Norvell comes in. 15 minutes later on the job, Mike Norvell says, we're going to take that offer away. You're back out in the open market. We don't have a place for you here, which is fine. I'm not against that. That's tough, but hey, it's your roster. It's your job. You should be picking the talent that you're going to have on your roster because ultimately you're going to be the one that's fired if they don't play well. Point being, Jeff Sims ends up at Georgia Tech and starts the first game against the Noles. And I am not, as I tweeted last night after the game, I am not one that second guesses a lot of decisions. I'm not the second guess play call crowd or anything like that. And I'm not going to second guess this. Mike Norvell may very well know what he's doing. I will just say that Georgia Tech football has been the beneficiary of one of those decisions. And number two, this guy, Mike Norvell, is going to hear the name Jeff Sims a whole lot, as will you, as will I, over the next few years. Two things in addition that happened yesterday for Georgia Tech. They found a quarterback, and he's got immense upside and immense potential. And number two, he is going to rapidly change perception of Georgia Tech football. Sometimes when you talk about changing and or turning a program around, people make it analogous to like turning the Titanic in a harbor. Sometimes it is. But let me tell you what greatly expedites that process: a dynamic playmaking quarterback. We saw it happen at Clemson. We've seen it happen at a number of places. It seems like, oh, some things are going right, some things are going wrong. When you got that kind of guy, and he's only a true freshman, and that's the face of your program, and that's the guy kids are seeing on Saturdays, it opens floodgates. I think they had completions to 10 different receivers yesterday. It opens floodgates. And the perception now you will see manifest itself on the recruiting trail. You're not going to have to wait to the class of 2022, 2023, and beyond. This upcoming recruiting cycle, you'll see, because there's been this game in the ACC for a while. It's Clemson and who's going to take that number 2 spot and eventually challenge them. And I'm not telling you it's going to happen this year. I am unequivocally telling you I have bought all the stock I can and then some in that program, and I think eventually Georgia Tech will be that team. If no one else wants to do it, or if other teams want to come along with them, they're going to be the constant. They're going to be there. So they will continue to rise. They got a big one this Saturday at home against Central Florida. Central Florida opens as an 8-point favorite. I think that thing is sitting at 7.5 right now.